Hey guys, what's up? I'm Noah, this is Analog Resurgence, and today we're taking a look at what's going on with Kodak's Super 8 camera. Super 8 is Kodak's format, 100%. They created this little format in 1965 and it became such a big staple for home movies over the years. But now Super 8's original purpose has been replaced by easy-to-use digital mediums. And a lot of people just don't even realize that Super 8 is still a format that's around to be able to use today, except that it is. Right now, Kodak makes 5 different types of film for the Super 8 format that you can shoot in these old vintage cameras that you can pick up in a lot of thrift stores or online. But that's also maybe one of the problems with Super 8 now. See, a lot of these old vintage cameras are 30, 40 years old at this point. So maybe a smart idea at this point would be for somebody to breathe a little bit of life into this old gear and maybe release a new Super 8 camera for the format that encourages a new generation of people to maybe pick up these little cartridges in this camera so that they can experiment with it but also keep it alive. Well, somebody did, or at least kind of. Today I'm going to be taking a look at one of the most asked questions when it comes to talking about Kodak's Super 8. What is happening with Kodak's Super 8 camera? First, let's take a step backwards. In 2012, Kodak announced bankruptcy, which is a very bad sign. Now, one of the big news stories from around this time came in 2014, when a bunch of big-name Hollywood directors got together and pledged to continue shooting their large-budget projects in Hollywood on Kodak-manufactured motion picture film, which meant that all Kodak had to do was continue pumping out 16mm and 35mm film because they knew that Hollywood would continue to use it. So in 2016, Kodak decided to really double down and start pushing this whole analog renaissance thing that was starting to go on. And at the Consumer Electronics Show in 2016 of that year, Kodak announced that they would be making a brand new Super 8 film camera. Now, Kodak had stopped making cameras entirely back in 2012, so the fact that they were going to start making a new one again was pretty big news. And the fact that it was also going to be a Super 8 film camera turned a lot of heads in the process, leading to a lot of criticism. Now let's do a really rough cost breakdown here. Let's say a roll of Super 8 film costs roughly $30 to $35 American for just one box. And this cartridge of 50 feet of film can hold about 2.5 minutes worth of footage. And when you've shot this film, you need to have it both chemically processed at a film lab and oftentimes digitally transferred so that you can have a copy to watch. Now, different labs charge different prices, but these services combined can run between $45 to $75 American. That means that in order to shoot your one roll of Super 8 film from start to finish, it can run you anywhere from $80 to over $100 American, and that's just for one roll at 2.5 minutes. Now, those numbers can vary, of course, depending on what country you live in and what labs you go to, but they're not going to vary by too much. That's just the fact of using film in today's world. It's an expensive medium, and it's not likely to get any cheaper. So Kodak announced that they would be making and selling a camera that cost you about $80 every time you wanted to shoot 2.5 minutes worth of footage through it. That is a very hard sell. So let's take a look at this camera that Kodak announced. This is the Kodak Super 8 camera. This is based off of functioning prototypes and what has been unveiled. The camera loads on the side just like how many classic Super 8 cameras did as well. This compartment slides out and inside is the film compartment and also where the battery sits. The battery is a rechargeable one, which means it does away with AA batteries, which a lot of all these older cameras would use from the past. On the other side of the camera is a fold-out LCD monitor, similar to what you would see on a digital camcorder. This is just to give you a view of what the lens is seeing. You need film inside of the camera for the camera to expose onto. You can't record any footage without film. From here, you also have access to the camera's built-in light meter and the ability to set your film's ISO for the camera as well. You can also use it to enable a filter to convert your tungsten film to be shot in daylight, which is a feature that almost every old school camera had inside of them as well. At the front is an interchangeable lens mount, something that many Super 8 cameras of of yesteryear did not have on them. This lens mount takes C-mount lenses, and a ton of older, mainly 16mm cinema cameras took C-mount lenses. This means that there are a ton of options out there for really high quality lenses that you can throw on this thing. Inside the camera, you have a widened film gate that shoots a frame on your film that's a more modern widescreen aspect ratio called Max 8. Very, very few cameras have ever been able to do this in the past, so that is something kind of special. Now we have some really special features. This Super 8 camera runs at sync sound speeds. Old cameras had motors that weren't super accurate with the frame rate that you selected, but this new camera has the ability to shoot consistent speeds of several frame rates, and you can sync audio up with your footage afterwards digitally. The camera takes an SD card in the back and has microphone inputs, so you can record audio into the camera onto the card, and you can sync it up with your footage once it has been digitized. It also contains USB ports for charging and HDMI ports for another monitor instead of the built-in one. And that is the Kodak Super 8 camera. It has some really basic classic features that you can find on most Super 8 cameras, and it has some really cool newer features that very, very few Super 8 cameras ever had. Sadly, the camera does away with a physical viewfinder, and instead you always have to use the screen on the side for reference. So in February of 2016, when they announced the camera, they did so along with these details. It would launch in the fall of 2016, and it would have two basic models. The standard model coming in around $400 American, and a premium model coming in around $700 American. Listen, $400 is fine. If I can shoot Super 8 sync sound footage on a nice camera for $400 really easily, then that is great. I am sold based on that feature alone because that's a really good, useful feature to have. Except I probably can't shoot sync sound Super 8 footage on a really nice camera for $400. See, the fall of 2016 came around, and wouldn't you know it, no Super 8 camera. Okay, I get it, you were ambitious and that was a big project to announce and you didn't give yourself a lot of time to do it. So a year passes with no Super 8 camera released from Kodak. And it's 2017 at the Consumer Electronics Show again. And Kodak once again has that Super 8 camera back on display at the show. This time though, they've got a functioning model of the camera on hand that they're showing off to everybody. And they explain that the delay is a result of some different design changes and little things here and there. A new button, a scroll wheel, some really wild stuff. Unfortunately though, the biggest announcement of the camera at the 2017 Consumer Electronics Show is the updated price point. They announced that an initial limited edition of the camera will release in May of 2017, and it will release for a price tag of $2,000 American. Wait, what? $2,000 American? That is quite a step up from the $400 to $700 range that they were working with the previous year. They also say that a cheaper edition of the camera will follow the limited edition release later on. So May of 2017 rolls around, which is the release window for this $2,000 limited edition version of the Super 8 camera from Kodak, and guess what? No camera, no release, also no updates. This is a little frustrating. It's been over a year and a half. They've announced two release windows, both that they've missed. They've announced an initial price point and then a way different price point later on. Now, being a company that doesn't really make cameras anymore, and then designing a camera from scratch to use a format that cameras haven't been made for in decades is a bit of a big project. But you should probably understand the project that you're undertaking before you go announcing it all over the place. So we fast forward the year and it's 2018 and we're back at the Consumer Electronics Show again. Kodak's got the camera and they're showing it off. It's functioning. They're also showing off footage that has been shot with the camera, because apparently they've rolled out a couple of trial models to just a handful of people in order to get some footage shot. This is great. This is fine. There is footage. The camera works. It exists. It has shot Super 8 film in the camera that has been processed and has been shown off. That's the entire idea of the Super 8 camera. Now around this time, they also offer an update via their Kodakery podcast. And there's a few episodes of the Kodakery podcast that talks about the Super 8 camera over the years, usually with just little updates like this. But in this particular one, the director of the project had this to say.
Our biggest challenge has been rebuilding the engineering knowledge that's been lost over the last few decades since the last Super 8 cameras were produced in volume. Our design engineers have had to relearn lessons that one time were common accumulated knowledge in the industry.
Now the whole thing talks about some different issues they've had with the cameras and designs. I will link to all that stuff down in the description as well if you want to sort through some more of that about the Super 8 camera in particular. Now around the same time of the electronics show in 2018, Kodak also put out a blog post update on their website, detailing the progress of the camera and hyping up its release and saying that at the end of the year in 2018, it will be available to purchase through their website, along with a handful of select retailers. And again, they say that will be available sometime in 2018. Also now it will cost between $2,500 and $3,000 American, because why not? So 2018 passes by. It is currently the summer of 2019, and there is no Kodak Super 8 camera to purchase. And what's worse is that the camera itself has not received a major update since last year. See, the Consumer Electronics Show in 2019 came and went, and Kodak was there to show off a bunch of random stuff, none of which involved the Super 8 camera. Which means for the first time in 3 years they were at the show and they didn't even talk about it, didn't show it off, didn't hype it up. This is not a great sign because they were just strangely silent with just no updates on it whatsoever. And that is where we're at, unfortunately, in terms of what we know about this whole project that Kodak has announced. It's been over 3 years. They have missed multiple launch windows. Different price points have been thrown out there. There's a page on their website dedicated to it, but you can't buy it. There's some footage out there and some podcast updates concerning the camera. So the camera itself isn't a bad idea. It's been decades since a brand new Super 8 camera was released in large quantities for people to be able to pick up and use and shoot this format. And some of these vintage ones aren't exactly working the best anymore, especially with aging electronics and components inside of them. So it would be really worthwhile for people to have the ability to invest in a higher quality piece of gear. And Kodak has built up enough hype around it, especially with the fact that nobody knows what's going on with it. And they have people like J.J. Abrams who have talked about it, who have been quoted in saying that they're really excited about the Kodak Super 8 camera. So it's at a point now where it's long overdue and it should just be released so that it can just get its way into the hands of the people who are going to use it. But that is the bigger problem. The audience for this piece of gear is very, very narrow. The camera is now priced anywhere between $2,000 and $3,000. And that's just for the camera. And then every time you shoot footage through it, that's an additional $80 or $100 on top of that. So this Super 8 camera and the Super 8 film is no longer aimed at amateurs. Super 8 is super niche and not a lot of people know about it. But Kodak wants people to know about it. They want people to shoot it, and they want people to know that it's still available to use. So the problem with marketing Super 8 film to amateurs today is that it's a little bit difficult. See, having people like J.J. Abrams and other big names like that talk about making movies on Super 8 when they were kids in the 70s and the 80s doesn't necessarily work, because back then that was the only format to do it on. And also a cartridge of Super 8 cost you like $4.50, which even calculated for inflation today is only like $14 or $15. So back then it was cheap and the cameras were cheap and it really was an amateur format. But that position has been taken by digital cameras and cell phones and camcorders. And even the way that costs have changed, it's becoming easier and more economical to shoot 16mm in the long run over Super 8. So that leaves Super 8 in just a bit of an awkward position. Now, I do hope that Kodak releases their camera. I do think there are some people out there who will invest in a camera like that. But the fact that they have said so many things, but also said very few things, and there's just such little news on the project in general is not a great sign to me. So until they do release that professional Super 8 camera, I think I'll probably just stick to these old vintage models and just kind of see what happens. Hey, thank you guys so much for watching, and subscribe if you haven't done so already. And if you're at all interested in supporting the channel, then there is a link in the description down below to the Analog Resurgence Patreon, where you can get different extra little notes and pictures and things that go along with all the videos that go up here on the channel, and that support just lets me do more of this stuff in the future. And if there's more topics that you want to see me tackle and talk about in the future as well on the channel, then you can comment down below on the videos and let me know what you guys want to see as well. So thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you guys soon.